All right, man, peace. So first off, I want to congratulate Mr. Terence Crawford on a predictably spectacular performance against Mr. Jose Benavidez Jr. And also congratulations to Jose Benavidez Jr. as well for a performance that one could describe as dogged, determined. He did his best. Obviously, there was a rather large talent disparity in the fight. In my preview video for this bout, I stated that he would certainly be at a speed deficiency compared to Bud Crawford, and it showed in the fight. It pretty much went how I stated that it was going to go, other than the fact that Crawford got the stoppage in the 12th round as opposed to it being a unanimous decision. In the second or third round, Terence Bud Crawford decided that he was going to turn southpaw, which he normally does. And from there, it was just a matter of time before he found his range. Benavidez, because he's tall and rangy, he gave Bud some problems that we'd not seen in previous bouts with Terence and his opponents, but he figured it out because he was faster than him and his skill level was higher. As we can see here by the CompuBox statistics, Terence almost doubled him in total punch percentage landed. He threw 78 more punches. He landed over double the amount of punches. He basically doubled him in jab percentage landed. He landed 43% of his power punches, sizably more than Jose Benavidez Jr., who seemed to be hampered by his leg. No excuses, it's just a fact. Around round 7 or 8, there seemed to be an issue that he was having with his leg. It is what it is. Once you decide to sign off on a fight, whatever happens, happens. But there was a discernible difference in his punch output from earlier in the fight, as opposed to around somewhere between rounds 7 to 9. It was very clear that Benavidez was having a major problem with his leg. I don't think that it would have made a difference either way, because Bud Crawford was obviously the better fighter. But the question is, where does Terence Bud Crawford go from here? So they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
And then that right hook that finished the night. TKO 12 to stay perfect. Bud Crawford is with Bernardo.
All right, Terence, there was a lot of animosity, a lot of build-up for this fight, and we always talked about you punishing those that talk. Walk me through how you finished this fight in front of your home fans in round 12.
First and foremost, I gotta give honor to God for blessing me with this victory. Without him, I wouldn't be here today. We just took our time today. Everything that went on this week, he was trying to get in my head, wanted me to have a firefight with him. We knew if we get in a rhythm, we can do whatever we want.
Well, let's be clear, brother. You were trying to get into each other's head because you're the one who went to his gym and watched him train and tried to intimidate him during the last days of training. Now, he tried to get a little get back at the weigh-in. It is what it is. You showed to be the better man in this fight.
And that's what we did today.
Now, I remember Bomac saying in the fighter meetings, it's going to be an easy fight. You said all fights are tough. How much credit do you give him?
That's how champions think. All fights are tough. Good for him.
Give him for the early part of the fight and making you work for that.
He made me work in the early rounds. He was trying to counter me, working on my distance. I couldn't figure it out at first, but then once I got my distance, it was a wrap from there.
That uppercut. Walk me through that uppercut and then the finish with a right hook.
I've been seeing it rounds and rounds ahead of time, but I seen him pulling back. But then he started getting tired, so I seen him starting leaning more and more.
Absolutely. Not only was he starting to get tired, but he clearly had lessened mobility due to that leg later on in the fight. So that definitely left him open for that right-hand uppercut in the exchange. And to be quite frank with you, Terence was lucky that he was not caught with something hard in the middle of not only that exchange, but other exchanges that they had. So once again, that makes me even more curious to see what will happen in a major fight between Terence Crawford and a top-notch upper echelon welterweight like a Keith Thurman or an Errol Spence, but especially Keith. Because Keith Thurman has hand speed to match Terence Crawford's. So I'll be very interested to see what will happen in a fight between those two. Hopefully they can make that happen.
Because I was touching him to the body, and then I just threw the shot and then landed.
I was there when Miss Deborah told you in round 10, but this is the last one. Took you 2 rounds. What did she say after the fight?
She said it took you too long, but good job.
All right. The most important thing, the future. Right now, first title defense at 147. You proved that you're a true welterweight against a big guy like Benavidez. Who do you want next?
I want them all. I I've been saying it all along.
Yeah, but brother, no disrespect. You've been saying that you want them all, but you have to name somebody now. Because you've been talking all that stuff on the top rank side. And now it's time for you to say, this is who I want. Name one guy. You can't fight them all at the same time. So if you're definitely sincere in your claim that you want to unify the welterweight division, I promise you that if you go to Todd Dubuff or Bob Arum and you say, look, I want Errol Spence in my next fight, and you go on a public campaign for Errol Spence, you will get Errol Spence. I have no doubt about that, as long as the money is right. And if you don't get Errol Spence, then we have to start to shine the light on Errol Spence and ask Errol Spence, how come you're not fighting this guy when you both have been talking about one another, and it's very clear that he's made that first step to come and fight you. But when you say I want them all, it makes it look like you're trying to put up a smoke screen. That's how you're making it look. And then beyond that, as I stated in the preview video, when he decided to sign a multi-fight deal with Bob Arum, that showed me right there that he was not that serious about actually trying to unify the welterweight division. That's the bottom line of it for me. But you know what? I'm not going to blame him too much, because a lot of these brothers, they're scared in regards to the financial marketplace. What's on the horizon? Am I going to actually be able to handle my own affairs? So it's easier to just sign a multi-fight deal with a promotional company who you know is going to get you your guaranteed $2 to $3 million a fight over the next 7 or 8 fights. But sometimes you have to dare to be great. Like they say, fortune favors the bold. But to say I want them all, nah, bro. You can only fight one guy at a time. Who do you want to fight next?
You know, it ain't my job to get the fights done. It's my job to want to fight the fights that everybody want to see. And I've been calling for all of them ever since I moved up in the division.
Right, but what does that mean if you guys are not on the same promotional company? What are you really saying? What does that mean? You're not saying anything. Is it going to hurt you to say into the microphone, I want to fight Keith Thurman next, or I want to fight Errol Spence next?
So that's up to Bob and Top Rank.
All right, Omaha.
In other words, when he says that's up to Bob and Top Rank, whoever Bob wants me to fight next is who I'm going to fight. That's what that amounts to.
You showed up and showed out for Bud Crawford.
Shout out to all my fans that came out here to support me. All the Mexican fans that support me. Hey, we did it, baby.
Isn't that a great?
All right, good for you, brother. God bless you. Hopefully everything goes well. But we have to get these major fights. You're going to be 31 soon. You're a superlative fighter, no doubt about it. Hopefully we'll get that Errol Spence fight sometime next year, or that Keith Thurman fight. But you can't just keep fighting a lot of these dudes that Bob Arum puts up for you. Like, no disrespect to Jose Benavidez. This was a fighter, Jose Benavidez Jr. I'm talking about, who at one time was a top prospect, took a bullet to his knee that destroyed his kneecap, and they put him in the ring with you tonight. And to be quite frank with you, early on, it was a little dicey for you in regards to you being able to figure out his style. Not to take anything away from you. Once again, you're one of the best in the world. In my view, you're right there with Lomachenko, 1A. A lot of brothers get mad when I say that. It is what it is. But Jose Benavidez Jr., is anybody going to remember that he fought Terence Crawford? He's just an opponent. You have to fight super fights. So after the fight, I need you to say, this is who I want to fight. I want Keith Thurman next, or I want Sean Porter next, or I want Errol Spence next. You claim that you want to unify the welterweight division. You have to call out somebody else that has a belt. That's what you have to do. We saw Errol Spence get into the ring to challenge Sean Porter. Sean Porter is currently on the run. He's doing his best to get into the FBI Witness Protection Program to avoid Errol Spence. So let's see what happens. Okay, so now I just want to do a quick run through of what occurred in the fight tonight and how Terence Crawford was able to seal the deal in the 12th round. He basically sequentially and incrementally broke down his opponent, Mr. Jose Benavidez Jr., who was a game fighter. He did his best. But the talent disparity was just too great. The conditioning disparity was just too great. The speed disparity was just too great. And the footwork disparity was just too great. I'm not quite sure if Jose Benavidez Jr. had any advantages other than height coming into this fight. And it showed in the bout. I'd seen Jose fight a few times before he was shot in the knee, and he was slow before he was shot. So, it is what it is. But this is the right uppercut that Terence Crawford landed in the 12th round that knocked down Jose Benavidez Jr., who pretty much was just trying to play possum all throughout the fight. He was trying to find a way to get to the final bell, and he was unable to do so. Great shot landed here by Terence. He basically was trying to turn up the heat on Jose. He stepped in. They exchanged a flurry of wild punches, the both of them. And to be quite frank with you, Terence was fortunate that Jose was not able to land his own potential knockout shot or knockdown shot in this flurry. But, you know, Terence Crawford is a fighter who takes chances. To me, his offense reminds me a lot of what Floyd Mayweather's offense would have been in the 147-pound or 154-pound weight class had he not had all those hand injuries. You can see that Terence Crawford pretty much punches without worrying about hurting his hand. And that allows him to put forth a lot of power in his punches. But once again, great punch landed by Terence Crawford in that round, which brought forth the first knockdown in the 12th round of Jose Benavidez Jr. This is another angle of that same punch. Caught him perfect, right under the jawline. This is Jose Benavidez Jr. on the ground, looking like he just woke up late. His alarm clock didn't go off, and he realizes he's going to be late to school. Here goes Terence Crawford coming in for the finish. Lands a great overhand right hook right over the top. Perfect punch. Dizzy Benavidez along the ropes. The referee's about to step in. There he goes following through. You can see Benavidez pretty much was done, but once again, I give him a lot of credit for the heart. This is a great left hand that Terence Crawford landed in that same flurry. Knocks Benavidez back to the ropes. He's pretty much ready to go. And here the ref just jumps in. He said, look, it's over, man. And that's embarrassing. You go all 12 rounds to get stopped. You might as well have got stopped in round 2. Could have went home, had your drink, got to sleep early. Okay, so now let's hear what the loser of the bout, Mr. Jose Benavidez Jr., has to say about his performance tonight. He really does not have anything to be ashamed of. He fought as hard as he could. He tried to last until the end. He just happened to be in the ring with, if not the best, one of the top 2 fighters on the entire planet when it comes to boxing. So let's hear what he has to say.
Let's go up to Bernardo.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. There was a lot of animosity, a lot of talk before this fight. So what are your feelings for Bud Crawford after this?
I gave him a hell of a fight. Hey, I got caught boxing, you know. Thought I was doing good, you know. I was putting pressure. We were a good fight, you know.
You're doing okay, man. Your feet are just too slow. You couldn't catch him to save your life. Bud Crawford has phenomenal feet. And that's one thing that the commentating team, that's one thing that they stated that was certainly accurate. That the 2 best fighters in the world today, Bud Crawford and Lomachenko, or Lomachenko and Bud Crawford, whichever you prefer or whomever you prefer, what truly outdistances them from their opponents is not only their skill set with their hands and with their head, but also with their feet. They constantly keep their opponents off balance with their constant foot movement and their unpredictable footwork.
He's a great fighter. We just wanted to give the fans, you know, I wanted to give the fans a fight that they paid for, you know, to come watch. And I think I gave him a hell of a fight. I know he didn't think I was going to be that good. I mean, I take nothing from him. He's the best for a reason. But I just want to thank everyone that came out here to support us, all my Mexican fans, everyone, you know. They just have to go back to the drawing board and work harder.
No doubt that early on you were using your length. What happened in the middle of the fight? Was it Bud adjusting, or did you get tired? What happened?
My legs started hurting. I hurt my legs.
You did hurt your leg, but you also started to get tired. And number one, Terence Bud Crawford started to adjust and he started to wear you down. At the end of the day, another aspect that separates the elite fighters from just the good to very good fighters is that they're able to maintain the same level of mental acuity, fortitude, and physical stamina from rounds 1 to round 12. We saw it from Mayweather and Pacquiao, and we see it now from Terence Bud Crawford and also Lomachenko. They just keep coming. Their stamina, their determination, it never wavers, and that starts to wear their opponents down. You see it in the second halves of these fights, where their skill level is still there because their conditioning is so elite that they never tire, they never waver, and that starts to wear down their opponents mentally. The opponent starts to make more and more mistakes, and then he starts to tighten up. Their opponents do. They get tight, and then they cannot execute like they could earlier on in the fight. And that's truly how they start to wear down their opponents. But yes, there's no doubt that he certainly had an issue with his leg as well. But the number one reason why he started to lose was because Terence Bud Crawford, his speed, his stamina, his reflexes were still the same in rounds 7, 8, 9 as they were in rounds 1 and 2.
And it started backing me, it started hurting me a bit. But I mean, I take nothing. There's no excuses, He adapted. He's a good fighter,
No, he's a great fighter. And yes, he did adapt. He was able to find a range. He was able to land that straight left to the body.
But I'm a good fighter too, so I think I gave a show a hell of a fight, the fans a hell of a fight. So, I mean, I had that fight close. I had it close.
No, not really. By 11th, 12th round, it really was not that close, bro.
You talked about the leg. You said that it was never going to be at 100%. Was this worse than it had ever been in a fight?
Yeah, I gave out pretty bad on the 9th round.
Yeah, and that's not an excuse. You could see that his leg was messing with him.
I try not to think about it, but I mean, not only that, I take nothing from him. He's the best of the best. So, I mean, I feel like I did a good job. I just have to go back and train harder and put my hands up.
Oh, you most definitely need to do that. You need to keep your hands up and you need to keep your hands moving. After about round 5 or 6, you just wore the earmuffs all night and you became target practice for Bud Crawford. Now, earlier on in the fight, he had Bud wearing the earmuffs. So, many times in these fights, when fighters are trying to find a range with one another, especially when you have an orthodox fighter against a fighter who's fighting southpaw, they spend a lot of the early rounds in the fight trying to find the range and the distance. And whoever gets the other fighter to wear the earmuffs is normally the fighter winning the fight. For example, if you watch the Zab Judah Floyd Mayweather fight, Floyd was wearing the earmuffs a lot in those first 4 rounds. And that's when Zab was getting off on him a little bit. But as Floyd started to understand the distance, he started to wear Zab down to the body. You saw what happened. He started to put those earmuffs down. He started to shoot his jab more, shoot a straight right hand lead more, left hook to the body, and he dismantled Zab. And that's very similar to what Terence Bud Crawford did to Benavidez tonight.
You didn't see anything special in Bud before the fight. Now, against one of the top pound-for-pounders, you hung in there. What did you learn about yourself?
Just need to go back to the drawing board and, those little punches like that can end the fight. There was 10 seconds left. I mean, like I said, I take nothing from him. I gave him a good fight. I don't think he thought I was going to give him a good fight like that, but I take nothing from him.
Well, yeah, you gave him a good fight, but mostly because you were so much bigger than him. That's the main reason why you gave him a good fight. I mean, you had a decent skill level, but you were in the ring with one of the top 2 fighters in the world, or the top fighter in the world, whoever you prefer. At the end of the day, you had to bring a lot more to the table. But I don't blame you. You basically were fed to Bud Crawford by Bob Arum.
He's the best of the best, and I just want to give the fans a good show.
Thank you very much. Tess, we send it back to you.
Hey, congratulations to you, Jose Benavidez Jr. You did your best. Nothing to be ashamed of. You just happened to get your ass whipped by the best on the planet, or second best on the planet. It is what it is. Okay, so now let's see what Andre Ward, the recently retired former super middleweight / light heavyweight champion of the world, has to say about Terence Bud Crawford.
Kevin Connor's back alongside the Olympic gold medalist and 5-time world champion Andre Ward. Andre, the great ones can win fights. The best of the best, pound for pound, can do it with flair. What did we learn about Terence Crawford tonight?
I mean, we learned what we already knew for those who follow Terence. Like, he's the best of the best. There's still some champions in the 47-pound division. There's 3 other good champions that we want to see, the fans, myself, want to see fight to see who's going to come out on top.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for saying that. Because those fights have to happen. If you're a boxing aficionado, you understand those fights have to happen. And pressure has to be placed on Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman for those fights to happen next year. Once again, I'm not somebody who believes that you have to fight super mega kill be kill fights every fight. I understand that these are flesh and blood men. They're not robots. You can't treat them like slaves or gladiators in ancient Rome. But still, it's incumbent upon you to live up to the quote-unquote majesty of your title reign. You have to fight top contenders or you have to fight other champions. Every once in a while you get a showcase fight. But you do have to fight the top fighters in your division. And I'm okay with Terence Bud Crawford fighting a Jose Benavidez Jr. in his first title defense. And maybe even give him one more title defense against somebody who we might not know that well, who was just given a title shot by a sanctioning body. But sometime next year, he has to fight either Errol Spence or Keith Thurman or both of them. to show me that he's truly sincere about his claims that he wants to unify the 147-pound weight class. That's the bottom line of it.
We don't care about the politics. We just want to see the fights. As far as tonight, he did what he had to do. Benavidez, you got to give him credit. He's 18 some odd months removed from getting shot. Well, you know, maybe a little bit longer than that, from getting shot in the leg. You can see the leg gave him issues tonight.
Thank you, Andre Ward, for stating that, because certain people might claim that Benavidez Jr. was trying to make an excuse. It was very obvious that that leg was giving him major, major problems. And could you imagine another fighter who certain fans might not like, who was to get in the ring with someone who had just been shot in the knee? What they'd be saying about that fighter? Oh, that was a cherry pick. Imagine if Danny Garcia had fought Jose Benavidez Jr. They'd have been saying, oh, that's a cherry pick.
But he landed some shots. He took some good shots, but the cream rose to the top. You saw why Terence Crawford is arguably the best fighter in the world and why he's the champion, because he separated himself from Benavidez, and Benavidez could not keep up.
What's next for Terence Crawford? Well, he's headed to Monday Night Football with our pal Joe Tessitore. The big Green Bay Packers fan will be at Lambeau Field for Monday night's game against the Niners.
Congratulations to Terence Bud Crawford. Hopefully bigger and better things are awaiting this brother. Hopefully he'll walk into Bob Arum's office and truly dare to be great and charge Bob Arum with making the fight with Errol Spence or Keith Thurman or Sean Porter sometime next year. I don't expect him. Of course, he's not going to fight again this year. It's already the middle of October. So we probably won't see him again until next March, somewhere around there. And I'm going to expect another, I won't call it a showcase fight, but I have little doubt that he'll be fighting one of these so-called top contenders in line for whatever belt he holds. I believe the WBO belt sometime earlier next year, as opposed to publicly challenging one of the other champions. But, you know, this stuff has to be resolved. These fighters, they have to fight each other sooner or later. We need to make it happen. We need to see who's the best. But anyway, peace.